can these floor time activities be incorporated throughout the day, particularly when you have two parents working and they don't have the time for 8 or 10 sessions a day themselves. The floor time that we're talking about in these 20-plus minute sessions a day should be always also part of a general philosophy. So in the bathtub, during dinner, in the car, you're always trying to get circles of communication going. So you're always getting bits and pieces, 2 minutes here, 3 minutes here, 4 minutes there. In the supermarket, taking things off the shelves, taking cans off the shelves, you can make that an interactive thing. See if Johnny will take the thing off the shelf and give it to you. So you can make almost any activity, and you're trying to get these circles going all the time. Basically, all the child's waking time, as we talked yesterday, you want circles of communication, sometimes very soothing. A back rub. Do you want your tummy rubbed here? Do you want your toe tickled here? So it's something that's very soothing when the child is tired. Other times it's more robust and interactive, but you're doing this as a general philosophy all day long, and that's basically your goal.
I generally recommend no more than a half hour, 45 minutes a day of TV, because for children who have developmental challenges, as well as all kids, but especially with developmental challenges, we need the time interactively. You know, TV is not a two-way affective reciprocal interactor. So we need the time. We can't afford to waste the time. TV induces passivity, induces a lot of, it's not the content of the TV, it's the passive nature of watching. It's not even if it's interactive, it's not like human interaction. So I recommend generally for kids limiting the TV, and especially for kids with special needs, to about a half hour a day. And screen time, including computers, you know, if the child's interested in the computer and using for learning, maybe another 45 minutes on the computer, but I like most of the time to be live, human-to-human contact. So you have to limit it, and the way you do it is you begin titrating down. A child is watching 3-4 hours, you can't just go to a half hour. You go down very gradually over a period of many months, and you try to provide other activities that are more fun for the child, so the child doesn't mind so much. You know, so the child actually begins enjoying the floor time, what we call the floor time play with you. So you got to give the child a better alternative.
Yeah, I think the key is, again, I keep coming back to the same point of this co-regulated emotional signaling. But the more work you do when children are young and getting them in these long interactive sequences, and the more sensory work you do with them, like you saw in those videos, the better they modulate sensation and become less overwhelmed. And then the more you see people who can do what you saw in the outcome videos, who can handle a wide range of emotions and actually enjoy it. So you've got to be able to, one, get used to it, and two, learn to interact with it, starting off very, soothingly, but hopefully when you're 3 or 4 years old, or even 2 or 1.5. But even as an adult, I would say the key is work on back and forth interaction and showing them they can control the emotion of the other person through their own interactions, not making an all or nothing thing so it's so catastrophic.
This morning we talked about the strategies for that first stage, pulling the child in. And as you remember, we were talking this morning, the floor time techniques we're covering today are more than simply for those 8 or more 20-minute or more sessions that we want to do each day, or as much as you can do during the child's waking time. And again, on a busy day, don't feel you necessarily have to do 8. And for some children, you may want to do more semi-structured problem solving, and do 5 and 5, 5 semi-structured problem solving, 5 floor time. Some kids may want to emphasize the motor and sensory and spatial play a little more, depending on the profile of the child. The basic principle is the child's waking time needs to be used wisely. And for children who are struggling with the first 4 levels, most of that has to be one-on-one time. Once the child gets through the first 4 levels, things can be learned more in groups. But we can't afford sitting around in circle time. We can't afford watching TV for more than a half hour. Can't afford screen time for more than a half hour. Although with the older children, once they've mastered this, the computer can be an aid for math learning or some reading learning, and then you can spend a little more time on the computer. But even there, you don't want more than an hour a day, because interactive time is still the name of the game. So we want to use the time wisely, and there are choices to be made. It's not that listening to a story is bad, it's just that it's not as good as interaction with a child who's not yet interactive. With a child who's fully interactive and fully verbal and loves to pontificate in the meaning of the story he's hearing, that's terrific. Listening to a story is great. But for the child who's just getting the rudiments, we've got to make it interactive. That child loves to look at books. We've got to look at books with him. Turn the pages together, point at different interesting sites in the books. The child who's identifying words but not interactive and can actually read a little bit, and many kids can, we can look at books together and read a sentence and then act it out as a pretend drama and then take off on that pretending. So you can turn the child's interest into interaction. But the key is not to simply use activities that may be, quote, educational, but are not where the child is at. Remember, the principles are meet the child at the developmental level, move that child up.